Hey Superiors. All 200,000 of you. Sorry, I just, I have to.
How did this happen to me? In a good way.
And why did none of you tell me sooner?
You were busy, clue number one, with exams.
Was I? On the fence. We do not tolerate failure here. I mean, we have to feed the dragons somehow. Anyways, on to the questions. What is the nerdiest thing you own? Well, what makes something more nerdy than another thing? No fandom, I think, is inherently more nerdy than another, so I took nerdy to mean rare in this context. Not rare as in expensive, but rare as in fewer people would want it. And I have these, and what are these, you ask? These are Shakespeare's plays. I have one for every play that he has written. This one is The Tempest. It comes with the entire play, plus a whole lot of commentary, and the coolest thing is that some of these books actually date back to the 1800s. The youngest one is only like the early 1900s. So this is probably the nerdiest thing that I have, and I actually got all of these for free from my library. What have you done work-wise, and have you been able to pursue your passions through work? I have worked as a lifeguard, an actor in a horror maze, and done freelance editing and writing at various points, so sort of, though YouTube is really the only job that has allowed me to pursue my passions, particularly through writing. You seem like a really experienced writer and world builder. Could you possibly tell us a bit about your work or your world? Okay, this question. I have been pretty nervous or anxious about speaking about my writing, partially because a lot of my work isn't finished just yet, but also because I have to be careful how I present my own work when on YouTube I make content to do with how to write. So please forgive me, but I will say a little bit about my writing. I don't feel like an experienced writer or world builder, I just read and think about this stuff a lot, and I, like a lot of people, have a fantasy series that I have been working on for a long time, constantly writing, that I am not quite sure I will ever get to a state that I am entirely happy with. It has kind of a Celtic Norse mythology theme to it, and the first book has a lot to do with a serial killer, but like a fantasy serial killer. Except one day, when I was writing the draft of the second book in that series, I stopped. I was sort of going through a bit of an ugly breakup at that point, and in the midst of all of what was going on, I just stopped my fantasy novel as this single crystal clear scene came into my head that I knew I needed to write. And I began writing a young adult novel about two characters named Summer and Theo, who were grappling with a similar issue to what I was struggling with. And this was strange, because I had never considered writing a young adult novel before. It's somewhat a romance, but it has a lot more to do with mental illness. That was my first venture into the non-fantasy realm of writing, and the following summer I then wrote what I feel is actually my best story, a novel called A Little Village East of Here. And you can actually see the cover of it on this necklace. I had it made. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's got a broken pocket watch. And that story involved this fantastic planning board, which was a hell of a lot of fun to put together. And it was about another issue that I was grappling with personally. In particular, am I who I am because of the choices that I made, or am I who I am because of what the world made me? So I took two characters with differing points of view, one who believed that they entirely were who they were because of the choices that they made, and one who believed that they were entirely who they were because of what the world had made them. And I put them together on a road trip throughout Europe, and each of them had secrets that they would eventually learn about one another. And then last summer I wrote what is probably my darkest story, because there was a particularly dark thing on my mind at the time. Very few friends of mine have ever read it, and I'm not sure where I would go with it, but the premise is this. It's about this guy called James Beauregard, who goes to this parallel world, which is meant to be exactly the same as his, except in the tiniest of details. But there's this girl called Ella, who is supposedly his best friend, a massive part of his life, but he has no idea who she is. She doesn't make sense in this world that is meant to be next to identical. So he begins to look into why she's there, and it connects to things in his past. I hope these descriptions were a little bit interesting to someone. Do you really care? I don't know. What is the one series of books that has affected you the most? Affected me as in defined me as a person? Well, Tolkien has been a pretty big part of my life and really defined my reading tastes for nearly a decade and a half. It was The Hobbit that actually got me reading in the first place when I was like 6, 7. If we're talking about TV shows as well, then most of the followers of my channel would definitely know of my absolute adoration of Avatar: The Last Airbender. So maybe that. If you branched out into other things, what would they be? Currently I've got 5 different types of content that I cycle through that I'm pretty happy with, but if I did branch out, I've considered doing A Song of Ice and Fire, like Game of Thrones, but the most likely route that I would take if I was to sort of broaden the content that I would make would be doing videos kind of like the recent Logan video where I analysed the beginning and last scene, analysing how writing works within particular stories that are maybe outside those 5 fandoms that I currently focus on. But that's all well in the future. Hot or cold weather? Cold. Did you ever kiss anyone besides your current girlfriend? Does that count? What do you plan to do in the future? Practice law? What kind? Write? Continue the channel? All of the above? Oh, side note, I finished my law degree! It's alright. It only took me 5 years. I did my waiting! And I'm pretty stoked, but thanks to you, especially those of you who support me on Patreon, I am probably in a good enough financial position to start doing YouTube full-time next year. It's an amazing opportunity, and thank you so much for giving me that. I only really ever had the time for 2 of uni, YouTube, and writing, and I've been focusing on uni and YouTube for a long time. So hopefully I can switch over to working on YouTube and writing, and work on getting my book out at last. Dedicating a lot of time to getting it published. I still have 1 semester of arts though. Boxers or briefs? Jockeys? My question is, do and how spirits reproduce in Atla? That is a fantastic question, Daniel, and believe it or not, I have some good news. It's coming. And by coming, I don't mean in the distant future. I mean next Avatar video. I'm finally going to do it. What is the superior type of beans or peas in your opinion? Green beans? How did you learn all this information about writing? I don't feel I know a lot, but what I do know tends to come from reading a lot of books and thinking a lot about why those books worked. I try and do 25 pages of a book per day, then reading books about writing, and also I'm doing an English degree. I just want to know one thing. What's the secret to your hair? I knew my hair had a secret. What are you hiding from me, you bastard? Will there be videos on Game of Thrones when Season 8 comes out? As much as the lore in that series is absolutely fantastic, Game of Thrones is a bit of an oversaturated market at the moment, so I'm pretty happy where I am at the moment, but who knows what could happen in the future. What is Mishka's life story? Mishka was born of the ether, before time began. He did not come from stardust, but stardust came from him. In the era before the Avatar, we bent not the oh, hang on, that's Avatar. Why are you so brilliant? Thanks, but I'm just a nerd who spends way too much time in other fictional worlds. How long does it take for you to find information, analyze it, and make the video? Really depends on the fandom. My on-writing videos take by far the longest time, that's why they have a week dedicated to them each. Elder Scrolls ones also tend to take a while, but on average it's probably around 24 hours total. That's with How to Train Your Dragon ones taking around 10 to 12 hours maybe, and some Avatar ones going up to 48. Why is Spyro still on the shelf? Spyro has had a real change of heart recently. He's been reinvigorated with the Reignited trilogy coming out. Oh my gosh, you have no idea how excited I am. Those games are my childhood. What first motivated you to create content on YouTube, and has that motivation changed over time? I first created content on YouTube because I thought it could be fun, and nobody was going to watch what I made anyway, right? Though, has that motivation changed? Yeah, definitely. Especially since this has sort of become a bit of a job for me. That comes with a whole lot of caveats. And bringing in writing to my channel definitely brought a new dimension to how I approached it, because it's definitely given me a sense of fulfillment that I didn't have before. Are you human? I think so. What do you major in for college? I'm actually doing 2 degrees at uni. I'm studying law, which doesn't have a major, and I'm doing an arts degree, which I don't just have 1 major, I'm doing a double major, with politics, though it's really political philosophy, and English. What are the books that you would most recommend on a writing or world building level? I have no idea, but I have loved Guru Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire and A Game of Thrones. It's written fantastically with amazing world building put into it. Are you familiar with the Studio Ghibli films? If so, which is your favourite? Yes, I adore that animation style, and Howl's Moving Castle. How did Mishka being our Supreme Leader come about, and what inspired you to add that hilariously unique aspect to your channel? What inspired it? I just love my cat, and he always seems so relaxed and in charge. Like, you can put a vacuum cleaner on him and he will not be intimidated. Have you travelled a lot? And if so, where is your favourite place that you've been to? There was this one place I stayed at on the west coast of New Zealand, which I have a lot of really good memories associated with. It was entrapped by trees and had the most beautiful view across the ocean right out into the sunset. But that wasn't really a particular region or landmark, so I'm going to go with Lake Canary. We had it all to ourselves and it was just gorgeous. Have you ever been to Canada? And if so, have you ever tried our poutine? Sadly, I have not been to Canada, and I have not tried poutine. Pouting? I don't know. Are you writing a story, and do you have any plans for it going forward? My main aim at the moment is actually choosing the book that I want to get first published, because that is proving a lot more difficult than you would think, and then editing that to a standard that I would be happy it being published in. And I would actually like to get the community's help on which book they think I should publish. Who is your favourite Stormlight Archives character? Shallon Devar. Dogs or cats? That's the debatable question. Oh yeah, really having a hard time there. I clearly don't have any preference. Do you ever get teased for liking nerdy things? I did when I was a kid, less so now, though it still happens. What is your analysis of the BBC show Sherlock featuring Bibblestomp Cumbersnatch? My analysis? That is very broad, but I really love the show, especially Moriarty, and have been a long time fan. Are you a Harry Potter fan? If so, which is your favourite character? Yes, though not a fan in the same way that a lot of other people are. I find it really interesting to study the series to find out why people love it so much. Like, for example, the opening chapter to The Philosopher's Stone is absolutely fantastically written. Favourite character? Possibly Sirius, though I actually really like what she did with Dumbledore in the final book, where she takes the archetype of the old, wise, perfect mentor figure and deconstructs him completely. I really like that kind of element of his character. What clone of Tim is currently in use? 38. Who's your favourite Doctor from Doctor Who? Tennant. If your house was on fire, which one thing would you take apart from Mishka? Probably my laptop, though nice caveat on Mishka, though I do have other pets. How do you handle putting together such in-depth content while at school? How do you stay motivated? By a crippling fear of failure at every turn? Though a while ago I decided that if I was going to make YouTube work, then I had to accept a dip in my grades, and I did, and I don't regret it. Do you like cats, or is Mishka just special? Oh, I love all the cats. I am the guy who will go to the party and find the house cat and spend their entire night talking with them. If your 5-year-old self suddenly found themselves inhabiting your current body, what would be the first thing your 5-year-old self would do? Nothing good, I am definitely sure, though probably overwhelmed by the fact that they can spend more than 30 minutes in front of a screen per day. What would be the hat to end all hats? A mix between a Russian Ushanka and Napoleon's Bicorn, of course. Who are you, and why am I seeing this post? I'm serious, I've never watched a single video of yours. I'm just the world's resident expert on, my cat, Mishka, our supreme leader. And I won't pick him up because I've picked him up like way too many times and he's just trying to sleep, so I'll just do this. Do you have any siblings? 2 sisters. If you could acquire any type of magic from any magic system, which would you choose? I mean, I'd say bending, but Harry Potter is kind of a jack of all trades. Aside from Truby's Anatomy of a Story, which other books would you recommend to help us become better storytellers? The Hero of a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell and Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. How did you start YouTube? What convinced you to start, and who inspired you to do so? I started making nonsense vlogs, and I did that for about 6 months, and then I gave up. Then a year later, one of my videos exploded into like 200,000 views, and my girlfriend said that I should give it a go again. I initially resisted, but then I did, and look where we are now. I'm so lucky that I did. How do you clone yourself? I can't tell you that. Trade secrets. If you were a god, what would you be a god of, and what would your powers be? Great question, but do I get to choose, or is it like a god of what I already am? In that case, I'd probably be the god of existential crises. Can I pet Lord Mishka? If you were here, but I can. What's your favourite trope or cliche? Fantastic question, though tropes aren't necessarily bad, nor are they necessarily cliche, but I do have a weakness for conspiracy stories. Seriously, you give me a corrupt government where you don't know who you can trust, and I am right there. Whenever I played Dungeons & Dragons, my players would try to guess which of the government officials would turn out to be evil in this adventure. This is an age-old argument between me and my girlfriend. Dragons or turtles? Dragons. If budget was no concern and you could write and direct a TV series or a film, what sort of story would you want to tell? I would want to tell a good one, but I know that I would not be able to. I know very little about directing or the production processes, and I would inevitably screw it up. But if I got to pick a story that I could tell, then I would love to be involved with recreating a Last Airbender movie and doing it right. Or adapting Artemis Fowl properly. What's your opinion on the Lord of the Rings films? How would you rank them? I adore them, grew up with them, and watch them every year. Really hard to rank, but if you kidnapped me and tortured me for an answer, then probably Fellowship of the Ring would be the best, Return of the King, and then Two Towers. That said, they're all masterpieces. What's your favourite discovery that you've made while researching a world that you make videos on? Oh, that is really hard, but I have really enjoyed reading about about how Tolkien's faith and his Catholicism really help us interpret and understand his writing better. If you could change one thing in either or both of the Avatar series that would make it better, what would that be? That M. Night Shyamalan ever had the audacity to make a film on it?
Did you ever hear of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Well, it's not a story the Jedi would tell you. Do you really exist, or are you just a fragment of all of our imaginations? I don't know. You've never met me. How do you know I exist? Human senses are entirely fallible. How do I know I exist? Oh gosh. Descartes, save me! Do you have a favourite philosopher? If so, why? Probably Paul of Tarsus. Why? For now we see through a glass, darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as also I am known. Otherwise, probably John Locke, just because his social contract theory has really shaped statehood since the Enlightenment. If you could only give one piece of advice to a novice fantasy writer in 10 words or fewer, what would you say? Read books. Do you do any art or sketches? I used to go away around once a year with my family, and I never had time to write throughout the year. I sort of privileged writing over that. But when I went away, I would often find a quiet place with a beautiful bit of scenery, and I would just spend an entire day or two, and I would draw. And I debated for a long time about whether or not I should show you something, but I'll show you one, I suppose. That's Toothless and Hiccup. Or just a generic drawing of a girl. Can you say something sexy in Winnie the Pooh's voice? Step into my office, Miss Steele. Nope. Nope. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work. What would happen to the world if our Lord Mishka passed away? Nope. Which do you prefer? Wheel of Time or A Song of Ice and Fire? A Song of Ice and Fire to Heaven and Back. What nationality are you? Your accent confuses me, but I think New Zealand, but then there's hints of English and other accents. I get that question a lot. I am, of course, from the Holy Roman Empire. Which YouTube channels do you personally watch? Lots, but go check out Exerbia, especially a video called Genocide Bingo. I'll try and link it up in the corner of the screen. Will you be my friend? Yes. Those are all the questions we have time for today. Thank you for sending them in, and most importantly, thank you for bringing me this far. Like, 200,000 subscribers. It still doesn't feel real, in a way. Like, I don't know. You sort of think that once you reach a certain point on YouTube, it's going to feel different in some way. Like, if you reach 100k or 200k. But you just feel the same in a weird way. It's hard to explain. I have this kind of intense feeling of gratitude for giving me this community that I can be a part of, that's just got so many good people. You know, I recognize who is always there in the comment section. I see you guys, and it's so cool to have all of you as part of the community, and that you care about the stuff that I write about. That means so much to me, because my ultimate passion is just to tell good stories, and writing is the medium that I choose. And then it's like my cat, who is just this animal that I adore with all of my heart, suddenly has, 200,000 people out there who know who he is. And he doesn't even know, in a weird way. I mean, of course he does, he's supremely Namishka. But, yeah, thank you, and I guess we'll be swinging back into the normal videos for now. Hopefully you'll enjoy it, and as nervous as I am going into the next year, being a full-time YouTuber, it's gonna be nerve-wracking, because it's kind of a very different job that there isn't a lot of advice for, about how to manage yourself, how to manage this, essentially a business that you're running. I think I can do it with your help, so thank you. Stay nerdy, Subfuries, and I will see you in the future.